Oh, are you still, we haven't talked about this in a long time. Joshua asked, do you get the kick and bass as loud as you can first and then build everything around that? I guess he's asking about, yeah. To me, I think.
No, I don't.
I'll let me give a quick answer, and then you can give your more. But yeah, you can give your more in-depth answer. Depending on the song, if it's like a full arrangement song, to me it's drums leaning on the low end and vocal. And depending on what the song is and what I'm feeling and what I hear from the rough or where I'm at in the process, since I'm often producing as well, it's vocal and drums. Those are the defining anchors to a record when I'm mixing, producing, honestly, writing to a large extent too. So that's generally how I do it. I know you've talked in the past about kind of kick and bass being fundamental when you're starting a mix, but not always starting with that. Have you changed that at all? Are you still generally?
Yeah. It's a good question because it's definitely a myth. I mean, I think there's so many overly insecure kick drums out there in the world that are just like, oh my God, listen to me. I know how to make a kick drum loud. Like, I think that is a very common thing right now in not even just in hip hop, just in mixes overall. It's like, oh man, that kick sounds great. Wow. Where'd you get that kick? It's like, okay, like, is the song good? Is the vocal, right? Like, I'm just having a hard time with it. I know how to make kicks knock. So I guess I can talk about this from a step back, from a, 100,000 feet view. I love kick drums. I think if you have a weak kick drum, then you're not going to compete. So I think there's a level of, yes, we need the kick to be loud. If you let kick hit 0, then the minute you put your vocal in, it's going to start, your mix bus is going to start clipping, you're above 0, right? So I would argue that you shouldn't. I don't know where my kick hits. When I bounce stems out, now that I'm bouncing stems because I'm assistantless for another week or two, my kick's hitting 0 after the clipper, after my mix bus, all my stems are hitting 0. So I'm probably not the best person to give advice. I read some like stoic Instagram posts today about like, we're all wise. Oh, it's the waking up post. Something about we're all wiser. We've all given our best friends some good advice and not taken it ourselves. Like, I'm here to give plenty of advice that I don't offer upon myself. And I hope you all learned something from it.
Yeah, the things we talk about,
but if I were to
have opinions we struggle with as well.
Yeah. But if I were to tell you the truth would be when I finish a mix, if I were to take my mix bus off, hitting my converter, my kick hits -6. So that gives me 6 dB of headroom that if someone needs the vocal up, that can happen, right? There's room for the vocal to be a bit louder because of that headroom. That might make the overall LUFS of a mix louder than I want, but that's not, whatever. Like that is what it is. But I would say that if you took off my mix bus, I'm probably at -6 on a kick drum. So I would check that. I don't know how that winds up translating to a loud mix necessarily, because like everything changes when the clipper and the limiters or whatever you're using and compressors are going. But I hit -6 clean on almost every mix that I do, and then I'll adjust from there. And that's not only a level thing. Remember, that also is low end EQ, and I go heavy on my low end EQ on the kick, so the kick has to theoretically be quieter. And then a lot of times I'll make up for that level by adding some mid-range knock somewhere, wherever that wants to be, whether it's around 300-400 or 7 to 1K, like whatever that is, that makes up the audibility of where that knock is going from. But I might have to lower the kick volume in order to get my EQ to be more to the taste that I want. So it's audible, but not overly loud. And that's what I'm talking about. The insecure kick drums are just loud kick drums that take up so much space, and you can hear it ducking the mix every time it's happening. That's not sidechain. That's an error, and it's not energy. The energy is coming from the competition of the vocal against that, maybe, but there are ways to do that without like forcing it by clipping. I just don't understand.
Sometimes that shit sounds tight to me, but I know what you mean.
I get it, but you can get that from clipping Fruity Loops with your drums. Like, you don't have to get that by, hitting 0 with the vocal like clammed up against it. I don't know. I get it. The energy is...
I love it.
The recreation of that energy is like my favorite thing to do during the day. It's like, all right, how much clipping are we going to do? What are we going to use? Like, I like it. I'm not against it. I clip all the time. This mix that I just said I'm in love with, there's plenty of clippers going on. It doesn't sound clipped though. It just sounds energized.
Yeah, I was my workout playlist, there's the XXX Tentacion Look at Me, which is the most disgustingly clipped mix version, and that shit goes so hard. It gets me so hyped up every time.
Yeah,
and it's like it's the anti what we're talking about, and it can be dope too. But yeah, I think people leaning on it too much.
That's one in a million, though. That record is 1 in a million.
I love that.
It's so good. No, Jon Castelli, like no, that shit's fucking crazy.
It's insane.
But I guess what we're talking about, just to round this off, would be that more than not, I think this approach is going to work to appeal to more people sonically. That sound is very ingrained in a very specific realm of the creative process, and that's not an after the fact decision of like, hey, I need to do this. Meant to
be translating to lots of different systems and on commercials and things.
And I bet it sounded like that from the first day. Not
probably,
as a mix engineer was like, I'm going to mix this now and I'm going to add this vibe.
Totally. That is
so I don't want to get it. So it's a production choice, and it's like day one demo choice from knowing what it's like to be in rooms of that nature and knowing these humans. That is not a mixed decision. So we should just like clarify when we're talking, when someone asks the question is, where do you start and where's your kick hitting?
Yep.
That's determined by the production most of the time. But when it comes to me and giving myself headroom, because I consider myself a mix engineer that can remake and understand people's intention, and I have ears and I can lower things 6 dB and then make it up another way to get it back to how they had it. That's not for the faint of heart. That's not just something that you can just do. You can't just turn someone's mix down 6 dB and send it back and they're going to be like, yeah. Sadly, that's not the way it's going to be.
You need to rebuild that excitement.
So I want to be more clear on where I'm coming from, because I completely agree. That record sounds crazy. And when I put it on, I'm like, let's go. It's a little bit unlistenable on my PMCs, but like I put it on the car.
Yeah, we'll listen to it when we're doing deadlifts.
Nice.
We'll share the AirPod connection.
Thanks for watching. Just a reminder, all of this content is free. There's no secret knowledge here. There's no Patreon. We don't read ads. We don't have sponsors. We're just trying to build a knowledge base. All that we ask in return is that you share it with somebody. Thanks so much.